Eccoci qua. Buongiorno, ciao. No, io in realtà di domande vere e proprie non ne ho.
Well, I don't actually have any questions for you because I think I've run out of all the questions I might possibly have asked for the next 6 months. But following on to what Conte was saying yesterday, let me start with the president of Confindustria, with Mr. Boccia. Let me ask you whether you feel more reassured by the fact that these issues, as Conte said, have been brought out into the open and are being discussed, and that amongst the government's objectives, these goals have been included? Or are you concerned that, for example, the citizens' wage and other tools may not be the best way to achieve social equity? So what's your opinion as to what our Prime Minister had to say yesterday? We believe that San Patrignano is a place of cultural convergence. Last year, the government's two main priorities were the citizens' wage on the one hand and the pension reform, and it appeared almost that growth was not a priority anymore. But yesterday our Prime Minister told us that these two things need to go hand in hand. And this is no small detail. This is quite different to the attitude we felt was around last year. We've got new laws and regulations coming into place, but where's the convergence? It is that to bring together solidarity and reduce gaps, there has to be development, and it is complementary in both cases. So it's not the opposite. I mean, the government has understood that, because zero growth means that if you don't grow, you can't distribute growth. So the requirement is growth in order to then achieve the goal of a better society. And San Patrignano really embodies a convergence of these aspects, I think, and it is a small masterpiece in its own way. And we were quite thrilled by the emphasis placed on this aspect by the Prime Minister, and we believe that it is a way of bringing together these two aspects. For me, it's nothing new. We didn't wake up yesterday. We've been saying for some time that growth is a requirement and not an end, to reduce gaps by placing one word at the centre that people have perhaps neglected over years, which is work, employment. And this opens up a whole other chapter, because we're not just looking at Italy here in San Patrignano in this forum. We're looking at a global view, a global vision. So let me put it bluntly. There is a real cultural revolution going on. We're seeing a whole world that's starting from industry, from my perspective, onwards, is showing the way. It's indicating how growth can be sustainable, how gaps can be shortened, not only within the country, but also outside of the borders of this country. And I think it is truly a huge achievement, thanks particularly to Letizia, for doing what you do and doing it so well. There are many aspects that really embody these goals. We're seeing convergence with many elements that the government is working on. We're seeing a cultural alternative that's being taken up. And we're here today, we're making small steps, but steady steps every year. And then at this forum, we make a giant leap. We make a giant leap almost without realizing it, because this is the result of the efforts we've made and we're making. Last year, the leap was the agreement. This year, it's the fund and many other things that Letizia will talk to us about. But I believe that these are the necessary steps: connectivity, cooperation, cultural alternative, the idea of a community. These are all the elements in the equation that we've been discussing for the past couple of days. And our moderator's done a great job. He's really kept things moving. He's a great professional, and we're very grateful to him. So people have been talking about conflict of interest. Well, I have every conflict of interest under the sun. However, we really must say that Luca has done a great job. And, one thing is to chair a meeting for a couple of hours, and another thing is to be up here on the stage for a day and a half.
Yeah.
Too kind. Thank you very much. Letizia Moratti. We discussed various aspects these last 2 days. I wanted to understand if at the end of the day we can leave here. I don't know if I'm leaving here more of an optimist or more of a pessimist after what we heard the last few days. There are interesting stories, businesses that have undertaken some fascinating projects here in Africa, not only. But then you also hear the data from the FAO, from Professor Giovannini, and you realize that the situation might already be out of our hands. So I wanted to understand from you, if listening to all of the things that we heard over the last 2 days, how will you leave this forum? I think it depends on us. The words that we heard this morning, the key words that we heard this morning were integration. Professor Giovannini was talking about integration between different dimensions related to the SDGs, the institutional dimension, economic and social dimensions too. So the integration of these dimensions. The Deputy Director of Development of the FAO was talking about connectivity. So connecting sectors and tools and different methods to reach a shared objective. Giuseppe Lavazza, in his remarks, spoke about aligning forces. He was talking about a multinational like Lavazza and those small coffee growers, primarily in Ethiopia, but also in Colombia and other countries. I think that if we are able to define these concepts, put them together, concepts of alliance, of connectivity, then we will have a greater chance of actually reaching the objectives that we want to. So we can't be pessimists, but we can't also be optimists. We need to be responsible, hold ourselves accountable in trying to reach these objectives, which are most certainly ambitious and which we are not close to reaching. So I'm going back to what President Boccia said, and that is that this forum is just a small but tangible example of small steps that are tangible and that we take every single year. Last year, we created this working group based on 3 pillars: private-private partnership for co-development, in particular in Africa, social inclusion of migrants, and social finance to help sustainable development in Africa. This year we added an important tool with the signing of the Memorandum of Understanding with CDP, which will give us the opportunity to find those financial tools that can flank this process of development of our businesses in the African continent. And yesterday, with President Boccia and with Arantxa Gonzalez and E for Impact, we also put together the work that we will be doing this year, and that is enriching the database that we're starting to build of African businesses through a connection of all the different platforms that are already operational under E for Impact, for example, which is a platform that gives visibility to these businesses that in 10 African countries. And also with the marketplace of Confindustria, SheTrade, which is a platform of the ITC. So that's our other partner of the project. So that we can add businesses created by women entrepreneurs in Africa. The objective, therefore, is to create a database, a significant one, that can incite greater interest from Italian businesses that will come to know African businesses, and based therefore on localization, on dimension, on the sector in which they operate, on the different activities that they carry out. Based on all of this, they can understand and assess whether or not these are businesses that they might be interested in creating a match with. So there's this matching between Italian and African businesses, and this is what we will be doing over the next year. And of course, I hope we will be able to present it next year as a result, as an outcome of the Sustainable Economy Forum. And again, if I may, I hope that next year's forum will also be held here at San Patrignano together with the ITC, with E4Impact, and with Confindustria. So I'd like to conclude by thanking all our panelists, all our speakers who yesterday and today shared their interesting experiences, different experiences, who gave us much food for thought. I too would like to thank Luca Orlando, who really led the way with his great skill. And thank you to the boys and girls of San Patrignano who helped us, who looked after us. Thank you, guys.